Hey all, welcome to Export Fundas episode 3. Thank you so much for all the feedback you've given us in the first two episodes. Jagat ji, I hope you're pumped like I am
Absolutely.
for this topic, which is something which not a lot of people think about. Uh, Exporting to markets which are still emerging, exporting to markets which are still untapped, and getting business from there, getting customers from there. So let's get started. Jagaji, can you just break down emerging markets for us? What does emerging market mean, and what kind of exports is possible in emerging markets?
Nikhil, last episode we spoke about the US market, which is the largest trading partner of India. And this time we take a 360-degree turn to emerging markets. Now, emerging markets are those where uh, they are high potential for next 20 years in terms of growth, but India is not doing so well in terms of its exports or trade.
With these markets?
So, yes, in emerging markets.
Okay.
So if you see two very clear pockets, is one is Latin America and another is African continent.
Okay.
So if I break down Latin America into some statistics, it's very interesting. Uh, there are about 43 countries in Latin America, and the total population of Latin America is 660 million. That is about 66 crores.
Wow.
Okay, out of a world population of 800 crores almost,
Right.
and that is 8 billion people. So that is 8% of world's population is in Latin America. But India's share, if we have to take population as a criterion, then we will take GDP also as a criteria.
Right.
India's share of exports to Latin America of the total export of India is 4%. So if you see 22-23, then India's exports was $17.7 billion to Latin America, all 43 countries put together,
Okay.
out of a total merchandise export of 451 billion which India had, which makes it 4% of India's total export going to Latin America.
Okay.
Now take another criteria of Latin America, which is GDP. So the GDP of the world today is $112 trillion,
Okay.
out of which US is $27 trillion, India is $4 trillion. The entire Latin American continent, 43 countries, is $6.3 trillion
Wow.
GDP, which is about 6% of the world GDP. But our again comparing our exports of 4%, we still have to catch up. So in terms of population, we need to double it. In terms of GDP, our India's export to Latin America should grow by 50% more.
Wow.
Right. And total trade. Now, this was about export, but the total trade, export and import put together between India and entire Latin American continent of 43 countries was $39 billion. However, China's total trade with Latin America was $480 billion. So we have 39 billion and China has 480 billion. So this is very clearly reflecting
More
that
than 10 times more.
exactly. So what we need to do, right? Now I come to the African continent.
Okay.
So if you see Africa, there are 54 countries in African continent. And very interestingly, Africa and Latin America put together makes almost 100 countries. Okay, so out of 54 countries in Latin America, the total population is 146 crores, which is like 1.46 billion, which is almost equal to India's population. So if we are saying India is today the fastest growing economy in the world, in a major economy, then you can look at Africa as a similar population country. And Africa's population is 18% of the world population.
Hmm.
Now, in comparison to that, India's exports to Latin America is better than, India's exports to Africa is better than Latin America. So, out of 18% population, our export is 11% of India's total export to Africa.
Okay.
So, If you but now again, if you look at GDP, so there are two parameters of comparing. One is the population, which we saw, another is GDP. The entire African continent of 54 countries, the GDP is 3.1 trillion, right? Which is almost like about half of Latin America.
Right, right.
3.1 trillion, and Indian economy is 4 trillion. So if you put together all the African countries, 54 countries,
Hmm.
their GDP is 75% of what India's GDP is. But it is about 2.75% of the world GDP.
Hmm.
So from that point of view, 11% India's exports from GDP point of view is good, but it still needs to be increased to, say, for example, 18%, which is the population criteria. Now, if we break Africa, because Africa is 54 countries, right, and very diverse like India. How India is so diverse? We have 29 states, we have languages, we have culture, we have food, we have clothing. Same is Africa,
Hmm.
no different. Look at West Africa. So, West Africa are mainly those countries which were once ruled by Portuguese or French, and that is why French language is more popular there than Portuguese. Our India's total export has been highest, 17.7 billion, to West African countries. The
Hmm.
second highest has been to East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, which is $11 billion.
Right,
And
right.
third highest export is to South Africa, the southern countries, where there is a SACU, the SACU group of nations, which is 8.9 billion. Then again in South Africa, there are non-SACU countries where our exports is 3.5 billion. And lastly is Central America, where our export is very low, 1.5 billion. This is where we need to concentrate. And Central Africa is where China is doing big time. So Central Africa is something we need to concentrate. Now look at the total trade between India and Africa, both export and import. In 22-23, our total trade was $98 billion. China's total trade with Africa was $282 billion. So there is more gap in Latin America, but Africa also there is a gap. So this is the background to the emerging markets situation where we need to catch up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So guys, there was a introduction and overview of, the overall market here. Let's move on to the next part, which is before we get into challenges and strategies. What are opportunities which are open in these markets in Africa and in Latin America? Let's start with LATAM first, and then we'll go to Africa. So, what are some opportunities which you have seen where there's a good scope for exports for India?
See, Latin America, in a way, being very farthest from India in terms of geography, uh, there are some challenges with logistics. But in terms of opportunities, if you see, in Latin America, the largest trading partner of India and even the largest economy is Brazil. And then, and that is why, we have BRICS also, which is very important. BRICS, which is includes Brazil.
Hmm.
And then we have
Hmm.
Chile, second largest trading partner of India in Latin America. Then Colombia, Argentina, and Peru. These five are the top five. But between these five, almost 55% of India's trade is happening to Latin America. If you see the exports in terms of composition from India, our number one export overall also to any country is petroleum, and also to Latin America is petroleum, because we are doing a lot of refining of crude oil. Second largest is pharmaceutical. Pharmaceutical is a super success, Indian success story in Latin America,
Okay.
because a
Okay.
lot of Indian pharma companies are there already doing business, already having factories also, which is very very interesting. Then we have auto components, auto parts. Our Bajaj scooter is also there, automotive is also there. Then there are chemicals which India exports. There are textiles. There is a whole range of products which India does to Latin America. However, one thing I must lay emphasis on where India has not concentrated in Latin America, we have done some concentration and effort in Africa, but not
Hmm.
in Latin America, is hospitals.
Okay.
And as you see, you
Okay.
will remember in first episode I was talking. Roti, kapda, makan, padhai or dawai.
Right.
Anything to do with food,
Right.
textile, building material, construction sector, education, and healthcare has big opportunity in any country.
Right.
Same stands true in Latin America.
Right.
So that is why our pharma is doing very well, but we are weak in education. We need to take education also to that country, but the challenge is language because they
Mm,
speak Portuguese and Spanish, and
mm,
so language is one challenge. But hospitals is a very good opportunity. Why? Because I have observed that a lot of Latin Americans are coming to India for medical tourism.
There's already a good name.
Right, right. India's medical, because even US and Canada, a lot of people coming. So naturally, Latin Americans will also come, and they are coming. But the counter to medical tourism and to get a better foothold and avoid competition by other countries on medical tourism is to set up
Hmm.
hospitals in Latin America, because we are already good in pharma. See, and these are both interrelated
Absolutely.
sectors. That is one thing, and then challenge with exports is the transportation cost because of it being very far, and particularly after these recent troubles in Red Sea and the Israel-Gaza war and
It's become
Ukraine.
even more far.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Right.
Cost has gone up. Yeah, so that's on the Latin
Okay.
American side.
Let's move on, sir. Uh, let's move on to the next part, which is what about other sectors like renewables and software and things like that? Is there a good scope for those sectors?
Yes, so let's talk about Africa now, right? The way we spoke
Hmm.
of Latin America. Again, very interestingly, roti kapada makan padhai or dawai. And our again highest export of India is petroleum. Interestingly, second highest export is
Oh,
rice.
okay.
So food. So food. So we are rice suppliers to Africa. Then
Right.
again pharma,
Right.
third highest. Sugar, auto parts, textile,
Right.
foodstuff,
Right.
building material, exercise books, hundreds of products. Now, let's take example of textile. What is happening in textile is the t-shirt you are wearing. Earlier episode also I shared, and I am wearing. It is
Right.
made in Tirupur, in near Coimbatore, in south of India, in Tamil Nadu, and big time exports is happening from there. What is the advantage to India is that many of these African countries are very less
Okay.
populated countries, and in something like textile and t-shirt, China is our very strong competitor, but China deals in bulk
Right.
quantity. So India deals in, for example, if you want this t-shirt 100,000
Right.
pieces in China, uh, you will get at half a dollar maybe, on a
Right.
per piece on a bulk basis. And but the and the Chinese companies still make
Right.
profit on it. But our price would be around say $1 or
Hmm.
75 cents. But we are still doing big time export because we do
Okay.
low volume. If you go to China and say I need 5,000 t-shirt and I need each t-shirt to be in five different colors, they will not supply that. They can't supply. In fact, their price will be more than India because they have economies of scale, they have
Right.
large production. There is where India's advantage is. So in these African countries, low volume. So one design, five color, India can give
Right.
1,000 pieces, and that is what is the demand in market. So that is what we need to position it strongly.
Got it. So let's move on to the next part. This is something which a lot of people say when we're talking about these markets, which is uh,
And Nikhil, sorry,
go
sorry
ahead.
to
Go ahead.
interrupt you. So again, hospitals and medical tourism. We have one. I have a student and a client who has set up 9 hospitals in African
Wow.
continents. And what's the model?
Hmm.
What's the model? Very interesting. And they first ran successful hospitals on contract in India. What's the model? They went and surveyed, and they found that many public sector, primary health center kind of or little advanced hospitals are closed in Africa, which it's owned by government. They approached the government. They said, hand over this building and land and whatever it is in a bad state to us for 30 years. We will renovate it. We will bring our equipment. We will bring nurses and doctors, and
Hmm.
we will run it. It's a very good win-win situation. It's an amazing public-private partnership
100%.
model. Government need not
Right.
spend anything. uh, government will get government will be able to serve its people. That's the duty of government. And this company will make money because they again did the analysis that the kind of medical tourism happening from Africa to India is that if we can give the same service there, we will be able to serve the people better,
Absolutely.
and even serve some people who cannot travel for very serious
Right.
issues. Today, they have 9 hospitals. They went public in the stock market this year. We need to we need to have many such success stories.
Wow, this is quite interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but you're saying 9 hospitals set up in Africa, run by Indians, and the doctors
Yes.
and nurses, everyone is from India.
Yes. Also the medical equipment, because India is also good in medical
Okay,
equipment now, and they are very reasonably priced if you compare it to European or American
and
equipment
I'm
cost.
quite confident their standard, like they have pretty good standards.
Yeah, of course, otherwise you can't give good quality treatment.
Absolutely. So this, so these are some interesting case studies. So let's talk about this case study itself, and what kind of challenges which any business owner wants to export in these places would face. And let's start with Africa because uh, this is something which is a common notion that exporting to Africa is going to be different. There's a lot of political instability there. They may not have enough dollars and things like that. So how does a business owner navigate this in Africa first?
Yeah, so primarily the see political instability is there in many of the countries, but the countries are trading. India is already trading, big time, $98 billion. So the question is to take it up, and uh, our competitors, China is also trading 10 times more than us in the same political unstable country. So, the one good thing is that the government of India has this institution called ECGC, Export Credit Guarantee Corporation, which gives insurance against credit. So, that is something which I will encourage all entrepreneurs who are wanting to export to Africa to always avail, right? Because then you are protected, and you have an insurance against payment default, because payment default can come either by way of lack of foreign exchange in the country or by way of default by a particular
Right.
importing company. And then if you see regulatory and bureaucratic challenges, there are two very clear challenges. One is the pharmaceutical drug
Okay.
registration. Say about 10 years back, 15 years back, it was not so much strict there, but now, because of the rising living standards, because of rising expectations, because the economy is becoming more and more part of global value chain and supply chain, they have stringent registration regulations now. So for pharmaceutical and food, so that is something which Indian companies will have to navigate. And second is the customs. So customs is still a little bit tricky in these countries because it's still not digitalized, and there are variations in terms of import duty which they charge and clearance time. And so these are the two very clear challenges. Otherwise, the challenge is language. In some parts of Africa, the cultural difference, and of course, major issue is the foreign exchange, which even the some of the countries, their banks don't have foreign exchange. Even if the company who is import wants to import from you, they have
Hmm.
sufficient capital
Hmm.
to import, but it is in their currency. When they go to their bank says, I don't have foreign exchange to open LC, letter of credit or payment. So government of India has done a good initiative where we have line of
Okay.
credit, and we have given line of credit to many African countries, and it is tied to them importing from
Right.
India
Makes
only.
sense.
So if they yes, so if they do not have funding, they can take the line of credit benefit, go to the bank, and foreign exchange currency letter of credit can be opened.
Okay. So next, I wanted to ask a little bit more about difference in culture. So what do you mean by that? Like, what would a business owner experience when there's a difference in culture happening?
Yeah, so if you see, first it starts
Okay.
with language, right? So because we do not speak, if you take Latin America, we do not speak Portuguese, Spanish, French, and there most of the people speak that. So it starts from language.
No, can
Then
you first talk about Africa? We'll finish Africa. We'll come to Latin America next. Oh.
yeah, okay. So if you see again West Africa were
Mhm.
French colonies earlier. So French language has a big impact people speak French there, and that has been a challenge. But Indian companies have sorted it out. Like that is why in the first episode I had mentioned that one of the best way for Indian companies to get into export market is to hire interns. So if they hire intern who speaks French or Portuguese, and there are many in India, there are institutions like Franco Lyon, and many others who teach these languages, and we have a large number of students, almost 30 years they have been teaching. We need to hire such resources. And other cultural differences in terms of
Okay.
decision making, right? So the decision making process there is different. For example, if you take a
Hmm.
African continent, they would you know consult some people. They would see what has happened is almost 150 or even more years back. A lot of migration took place from Indian business community to
Okay.
African continent. Those years there was no ship with engine, so there were sailboats. They would sit two three brothers. It's a very interesting background to Africa. Two three brothers would be in the vessel. They will go to Africa. Wherever the wind is there, the boat will go, and they would land in Nairobi or Madagascar or Mauritius or Dar es Salaam,
जो
and
गुजराती
then
सॉन्ग रिसेंटली फेमस हुआ था, प्रोबेबली टॉकिंग अबाउट देम, गोतिलो.
yes, yes, correct, correct, absolutely, absolutely. Because Gujarat is, I mean, the coast
Right,
is closest, and very
right,
enterprising community. So So they reached there and then they saw that okay, Indian spices are very popular, the Indian textile is very popular, and the Indian herbs, and herbs is nothing but
right,
today's pharma. Those
right,
days it was herb, there was no pharma. So then one brother stayed back there, two came back, then one used to go and come, one in Africa, one in India, and trade
right,
would happen. So we have so many Indian families in African continent, and that is why that they even non-Indian origin African companies, they would refer about a company to someone of Indian origin before deciding to do business. So the relationship with our Indian origin businesses should be good. So we should meet them because we have Indian, particularly after Mr. Modi became
right,
prime minister. He is the one who encased on the Indian
right.
diaspora capital and understood its power and the pulse. So that is something which we should be connecting to from a cultural point of view, right, with the Indian community in these
Right.
countries.
So now, Jagatji, let's get into the next part, which is your Latin America market, the furthest away market from India, I would say. What kind of challenges have you seen business owners face when they're trying to sell there?
Yeah, so there are many similar challenges in Latin America as compared to Africa, but there are some additional ones. So first, of course, remains the language, right? Because they speak Portuguese and Spanish, and we do not speak that language, so we are not able to. For example, if we have to do market survey, it is a bit of a challenge. But one another initiative is that the embassies of India are supporting Indian business community with translators there, right? So that is something interesting. But in terms of decision making, the in Latin America again, the decision making process is a little slow because
Okay.
they are a little laid back country, except for Brazil, I would say. So it takes a little time to get the first deal done, and in India, we our entrepreneurs
Right.
lose the patience to wait. So I will suggest that patience is required in that market. And in terms of course, food and everything is different there, but you have to mix into that society. And I have a very interesting case study where one of our student from Rajkot, he
Right.
was making this khakra,
Right.
with crisp roti, and we had gone to Brazil, and yeah, crisp roti khakra is like a breakfast, something for a breakfast for Gujarati
Right.
Marwadi community in India and even others. But there he was able to sell it as a tidbit with the drinks, beer and
Chakna. He sold it as
so
Chakna.
yes, he just crushed it. He crushed it, and it was put in a bowl, and it was. Actually, the restaurant owner was very happy with it. He ordered containers because he said, right now, earlier I was giving all these, almonds and pistachios and
Right.
raisins, which cost me too much. And this cost is one fifth of that, and it is very tasty
Right.
also, and it is different. Oh, now that's a cultural difference. If we had gone there and said that khakra you should try with tea in the morning,
Right.
it would not work,
And I know this
right?
for a fact. Latin
But
America has a huge drinking culture. It's part
yes,
of their,
yes, absolutely,
like,
absolutely.
जैसे अपने लिए चाय
Yeah,
कॉफी है
yeah, yeah.
उनके लिए है.
Right, right. Rio, and all are
So I
wonderful
am
places.
a
You know.
I love the Spanish language. I am a A1 certified Spanish
Hmm.
speaker. But yeah, I
Oh,
understand this. Like,
we should open a branch
let's
in
see.
Latin
I don't know if I still remember.
America.
It was long ago when I did the course. But
Right.
let's move on to the next part. So you wanted to share some more success stories in these markets, Jagatji. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So
Before that, Latin America, you spoke about the normal cultural things and all. What about the shipping cost? How do you think businesses have navigated that?
yeah, shipping cost is high. So because it is farthest, and uh, that is the challenge. So many a times what happens is, we are why one reason why China's trade is 10 times more than India is because China many times subsidizes
Oh,
freight, and we cannot do that because we are a
right.
market oriented economy. China
Socialist,
is more of
communist.
a
Right,
state driven economy, right? India is an
right,
entrepreneur driven economy, which in the long run is always what it should be
right,
and will always be successful. State driven economy is not going to be successful in the long run. So freight is a factor, and we need to navigate that. The only solution to that is, as in my first episode also I mentioned, innovation. So we need to innovate our products because Latin American markets also appreciate
right. And
innovation.
their GDP is a
So
lot higher than India, by the way, guys. Just keep that in mind. Yeah.
correct, correct,
So let's move on. Regarding freight, it is going to be an expense. You can still, figure out some advantages. For instance, khakra would be an innovative product for them, but
correct. And also consolidation can be done.
ship
So what
together with
happens
other
is
business
many
business
new
books.
exporters,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah,
through LCL,
right.
less container load, and so that
By the way,
effort
guys, if you
should be.
want to meet other exporters, we'll have in the description a link to Jagatji's class and community. Please get in touch with them. He'll get you exposed to thousands of exporters across India. So you can actually work with them, reduce some of your shipping costs. We want to get to these markets. Let's move on to the next part, which is some success stories. So Jagatji, you wanted to share some success stories in these markets. Please go ahead. Let's start with Latin America first.
Fine. So yeah, so if you see, we have a lot of success story in Latin America. We have very strong presence of Aditya Birla Group there for many years. We have Hetero Drugs. We have TVS Motor from South. We have United Phosphorus, which is in fertilizer. Mm, At least 20-25 pharmaceutical companies have manufacturing there. Tata is there in a big time. Reliance is there. Pidilite uh, from Gujarat, Zydus
Wow.
Cadila, Sun Pharma, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, they are all physically present there. So IT is also growing, and they are doing very well in Latin America. So, but the if you have observed, all
Right.
these are big companies. I'm naming them because if I say Sri Lakshmi Textile is also there, people will say, "Oh, what is that?" Right? But 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 there are hundreds of such small medium enterprises
Okay.
who are also present in Latin America. I'm using this big name because people can relate to those names because
Right.
they are large corporates. But there are 10 times more small medium enterprises also who have
Right.
established their presence in Latin America.
Wow, that's good to know. And any interesting success
Yeah.
story where you were surprised that ye bhi big jayega Latin America mein?
Yeah, yeah, everything. See, even like
Hmm,
we
hmm,
have
hmm.
these coolers, right?
Oh
We have
yeah,
air
I'm sure
conditioners
India
and we
makes
have
some of the
coolers.
best coolers in the
So,
world.
yes, yes. So there is this our Ahmedabad based
Right.
company is the Symphony. which has got a factory there
Oh, they
in
have a
Latin America,
factory there.
and they do, yes, 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 and they supply to even to US from their factory. They supply to US, and because there is a NAFTA agreement under which duty is nil. That's a very interesting success story, and our
Okay.
Bajaj scooter is there. Bajaj scooter is there. Our Bajaj auto
Okay.
rickshaw
In
is
Latin
there.
America.
Our Yes, yes, our Hero Honda
Yeah, that I
motorcycle
did
is
see.
there.
TVS focuses a lot on the Latin American market. They release some of their best bikes there first
Correct,
sometimes. So,
correct.
any other smaller
So
smaller
yeah,
companies or food products or something like that which you think has worked in the Latin American market?
yeah, yeah, many. So in food also, for example, I don't know. I'm sure many people know, but may not know also. Brazil is considered to be, and actually Sao Paulo is considered to be the gastronomical
Okay.
capital of the world.
Okay.
There is no food of any country, any region which is not available in
Wow.
Sao Paulo.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why it's called gastronomical capital. So there is an Indian company from Hyderabad which is exporting noodles, and they beat
What?
Chinese to it. Imagine. Yes, they are exporting
How
noodles
are
to
they
Brazil.
beating China?
Yes,
It's like
yes.
कोई
So,
कल जाके ढोकला एक्सपोर्ट करे गुजरात से भी ज्यादा.
yeah, 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 yeah. And they are the thing is, again, as I said, innovation. They have innovated the taste in such a way that it matches to the taste of the Latin American
Okay.
population. So they did their market research, they did the survey, they brought a lot of stuff from there. They did the reverse engineering, they checked what is the taste, how is it cooked, I mean, how is it prepared, and they were able to bring something which created a buzz in the market, and they are doing
Wonderful.
very well.
That's it's so surprising and yeah. Jagachi, I don't know if it's possible, but can we interview these folks for a future episode of Export Fundas?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
guys,
Why
do
not?
subscribe
Certainly.
to Export Fundas for these
Okay.
kind of interviews where very unique companies and founders who have exported across the globe. So let's move on next to the African market. Any interesting success stories in Africa? One is the hospital success story which you shared, but what else?
Many. In Africa, actually, we have more success stories than Latin America for the simple reason that the presence of Indian origin
Okay,
population is large. In every country, see, one very clear demarcation has happened over all these 150 or more years is most of the trading activities in African continent is controlled by Indian origin
okay,
Africans. Okay, and a lot of infrastructure, minerals, related sectors have have been taken over
okay,
by Chinese. Okay, so in terms of trading, our Indian business community, their origin
okay,
is very strong. But if you have to take Indian companies there, Marico is very successful. Luminous is very successful in the power sector. They have signed up many power projects. This is one example of India doing well in
okay.
infrastructure in Africa. Then Rasna, the Rasna, the popular uh, soft drink in India, is there, very famous. There is this Kalindi Rail, which has got a rail projects, again infrastructure projects. Then there is a Katuturi group is there, which I believe has the largest land holding
Okay.
in Kenya
Okay.
for agriculture purpose. And a very interesting reverse mechanism is taking place, which I will talk about it later. Airtel is there. Airtel is in almost 20 African countries. Airtel services are there. Then Bajaj Auto is there. Kirloskar, another big group is there. Mahindra is there. All auto giants are there. Ashok Leyland is there. Dabur is there.
Wow, we
Godrej
are
is
very
there.
deeply
Then,
related with Africa. Like every brand you're naming, I'm
yes,
pretty
yes,
sure has great
yes.
presence in India as well.
Yes, yes. Then KEC. KEC is interesting company again in infrastructure. They are in
Okay.
transmission lines and they have many contracts. And on the IT front, we have, so I was telling Roti, Kapda,
Right.
Makan, Padhai and Dawai. So on the Padhai front, we have NIIT. So NIIT, which
IT
is a
education,
good
yeah,
IT education school, they are present physically in many
very
African
nice.
countries.
Wow. So, guys, I mean, our penetration is very deep in Africa, and that can be an interesting market to look at. Let's move on to the next part. Uh, so, this is more from a macroeconomic perspective, Jagaji, which is the current economical, political, and geopolitical factors which affect exports to Latin America and Africa. And typically, what are some kind of solutions you have seen your companies, the companies you work with, adapt to make sure that trade doesn't stop? What would you recommend to any one of our buyers?
Uh, you see, India's we have
Right.
trade agreements with many of these countries. So, for example, we have India Mauritius SIPA agreement signed in 2021, which is a comprehensive economic uh, cooperation partnership agreement. Then we have a India SACU. SACU is South African Customs Union, where many South African countries are members. We have a
Okay.
preferential trade agreement, which is called PTA. Then we have India Mercosur. Like Mercosur is a similar grouping like BRICS, but in Latin America. So all the major leading economies of Latin America are part of Mercosur, and we have a India Mercosur preferential trade agreement. And with several countries in Latin America, we have trade agreements. I think what we need to focus if we want to increase our business with emerging economies, the way we have signed free trade agreement with UAE and the way we have signed with Australia and the way we are negotiating right now with Canada, with European Union, with UK, we need to have those type of discussions with Latin American and African countries also, because if you see India UAE free trade agreement, the import duty for almost 96% of products which goes from India to UAE and reverse is duty free, and same applies to Australia. But there is quite a big trade barrier for India in Africa vis-a-vis import duty, particularly in South Africa. South Africa, I would like to mention, is a very interesting case where India was, when there was apartheid and there was they were not independent. Uh, India was the biggest supporter
Right.
of South Africa. However, when they got independence and after a few years, they have tilted towards China for simple reasons are like
Right.
infrastructure dependence and dependence on funding and today there are many products in South Africa where there is a difference in import duty between
Right.
India and Chinese goods, right? So India is at a disadvantage, so we need to have more
From a
of these
the
negotiation.
roots of South African system and roots of Indian system have had similar origins. Gandhiji has played an important role in both countries. So it's sad that we've not
Right,
had better relations with them.
it's not us actually, we have
Hmm.
not done anything, but it's on the South African side because the
Right.
local politics in that country has
Hmm.
created a situation where they are tilting more towards China, but they will realize soon. Most countries, like the way Sri Lanka realized, when they were in crisis, it was only India
Yeah,
which supported them.
China is basically a
And
bully. So you never want to
yes,
associate with a
correct,
bully for very long.
right. So yeah, people
Right.
realize over a period of time, and
Let's move on
yeah.
to the next part. So, Jagatji, before we move to the next segment, which is your current affairs, any parting words to entrepreneurs looking to sell to Latin America and Africa before we move to the next part?
Yeah. So my suggestion to everyone is like this. I will speak of something very revolutionary. Not really. Many people are doing. We need to have a better physical presence in these countries from small medium enterprise side. Example, I have in the first episode I was mentioning the story of one of my student from again from Tamil Nadu who is into coconut business, and when he was exporting coconuts to Europe, and then there was some trade barrier put, and coconut import was stopped by Europe. He went to Mozambique He sourced the coconut from Mozambique in Africa and he supplied to Europe. Now, after doing that, because of the situation which happened, he understood that actually it is better to have your base in Africa, and he continued to do that. So, if you take today example of pharmaceutical, today we are exporting pharmaceutical to Africa, but if we do not set up manufacturing facilities in Africa, we will not be able to continue to export pharma. Someday, China or some another country, Indonesia or some another country will enter. So we need to be physically present also in those countries. And a lot of people tell me, oh, if I set up, I am already a pharma company in India, small medium enterprise. If I set up in Africa, my export will no. Your export will not slow down. Actually, your trade will increase because exporting from India to, for example, Senegal, you will export to one country, but if you have a plant in Senegal, you will be able to export to all the countries who have signed that
With
agreement,
Senegal.
West African treaty. Yeah, no, we all 21 countries, and your import duty is zero, and your market access becomes
Correct.
very large because you are present in that country. And over a period of time, I feel that the governments in those countries are going to increase import duty, and they will encourage manufacturing in that country the way we have done Make in India program. Mr. Modi took that initiative. Today, Make in India is the talk of the town. Russian president also in public meetings
Right.
talks about Make in India. So African countries also will start working on the direction. So it is high time that we go and we set up some manufacturing in that country, because that to me is truly, uh, you know, we have in our culture, in our scriptures, we have
Right.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The
Right.
whole world is one family. So why should not we? And it is actually exporting our knowledge. See, I always say, Saraswati jitni बांटोगे उतनी लक्ष्मी बढ़ेगी. Yeah. So as much knowledge you spread, that much wealth will grow. So go and share your knowledge with African companies, partners, make them partner, do manufacturing there,
Right.
increase your trade in that country. A lot of companies are doing. I have a friend who is into transformer manufacturing. They are manufacturing cables, electrical cables, and they have a plant in Africa. They were in India always, and they were exporting to Africa, and they set up a plant there, and they are doing more business than they were doing earlier. They could have never imagined to export that much. How much they are now producing and doing business there. So that is my suggestion to entrepreneurs. Go first trade. Of course, first trade. Don't straight away start by manufacturing, but trade. But with whomever you trade, tell them that in the long run, maybe just 2 years down the line, from day one we should keep in mind that we will together start manufacturing. You will see a big difference in doing business with them, and you will see that price is no more an issue like the competition of China, because you are giving some value addition of hope that we will be doing manufacturing together. So the effort they will put to market will be at a
Absolutely.
different level.
So, guys, there you have it. Now, there's one sensitive issue which we wanted to talk about in the current affairs section, and how that really affects our exports, our imports, our exports, and things like that. So, I'm sure all of you are aware that recently the farmer protests began again in India, and I'm sure the political opinions you must have got. But I wanted to sit down with Jagatji and understand the two parts, which is the MSP ask which the farmers have, and why India right now it is a self-sufficient sort of agricultural economy. We don't have to import food grains as such, but we have a small region like Ukraine. I mean, if they can be the second or third largest wheat exporter, I think this. I personally felt, Jagatji, why I wanted to talk to you about this was I think we should just figure out how to export crops. That's the quickest way to increase the farmer incomes. But I'm very surprised that no one talks about this, right? No one talks about trying to think of exporting food crops, trying to think of getting these kind of things done, and letting the market economy decide. Now, always, I mean, India is used to this, like just try to get subsidies and get freebies. So I don't know. I mean, can you just give an exporter's perspective on this farmer protest, how it affects, and why all of these solutions are very short term?
See, the thing is that We have to understand the root cause. Okay, in India, what has happened since independence and even before that is that the land holdings in India are very small, because we have this culture that if I'm a farmer and I have three sons, then when I die, the land is given to three sons
Right.
and it gets divided. So each one has a small land holding. Then in turn, when they die, they will give to their two sons. So land holding has become very small. Now, with that small land holding, you cannot make money, first of all. Second, you cannot do mechanization, because for mechanization you need large land holding. That is what
Right.
countries like Ukraine have done. Ukraine, I still remember in Canada, I used to work as a trade commissioner of one of the states of Canada called Manitoba in India for 9 years, and our largest export from Manitoba was agriculture produce. And sometimes in the evening parties I used to go, and my boss in the government would introduce me to someone and say, "This I'm introducing you. This is a small farmer." And after 30 minutes of discussions, I would come to know they have 8,000 acre of land. Right? So that is called small farmer there. And there is no labor there in that country. So everything is mechanized. India doesn't have. And third very important factor is that you ask any farmer's children, particularly boys, do you want to do farming? They will say no. No farmer's children want to do farming. Why? Because it is hardship, physical hardship. Today they have a smartphone in their hand. It is dependent on rain. It is so uncertain. And then there is a mandi, then there is a marketplace, then prices are decided in the marketplace. Even after you have braved the natural calamities and hardship, it is not necessary what price you will get. So this is the background. So as you mentioned, you will be surprised. India is the largest exporter of rice in the world. India has the largest rice market share in the world. Our fifth highest export of India in terms of all
Hmm.
products is rice and many other food grains. So that way, Indian exporters are doing good. Our highest export today of
Wow.
rice is to Iran. Second highest is to Saudi Arabia
I'm sure
and to
they love
many
their
other countries.
biryanis.
Middle East is completely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Middle East, all Indian rice is there, big time. So the challenge is that this I think is more political. Okay, so now elections are coming, and actually India has a very strong. India is very well positioned as a brand today in the world. India's brand positioning, I think, first time in the history of modern India, our brand is at its peak. And it's of course it's going to grow. So this is actually damaging our brand of India, and I don't think it is going to last beyond elections. So this is something which is temporary. But this is the background. I always tell farmers. I interact with them. I run a smart village program. I'm very well connected to grassroots, and I work with them. And I tell them I'll give two very interesting examples, and they are so prosperous, and they are not part of this agitation. In fact, hardly I believe that hardly 1%, not even that, of the farming community is part of this agitation, because only very rich farmers are there, and the real farmers in my opinion are actually farming, right? They are in the farm, they are not on the protest road. But having said that, let me tell you two very interesting examples. We encourage farmers who are growing tomatoes, and they were saying I hardly get 2 or 3 rupees per kg price. We encourage them to make tomato
Right.
ketchup, which is value addition. Tomatoes life is 2 3 days. You
Right.
will sell in pressure price.
Right.
Ketchup life is 1 year. You can sell whenever, and it is a very glamorous business. So youngster will do that
Right.
business in the family. It is a bottle. There is a label. There is a website. There is a market you will go to sell.
Right.
It's glamorous. Farming is not glamorous, right? But the same youngster, when they start selling ketchup, in 6 months they will realize, if I want to do ketchup business, I will have to produce tomato. So they
Right.
will go back to farming. Right? Same way, we are working with a group of farmers in many villages
Right.
who are growing groundnut. We converted 25% of the groundnut produce
Right.
into peanut butter. $4 billion. $4 billion a year is the market of peanut
Wow.
butter in America.
Right.
Imagine
Right.
3,000 crores. And they are exporting to US, to the Indian community food distributors who are supplying it to the American market. That's value addition from
Right.
groundnut to peanut butter. So that is
We
what
need
we need
modernization
to
in
do.
terms of value addition. You can't
Correct.
just expect to sell
Correct.
raw produce and make money.
Right.
So that is the
Right.
solution in your opinion, is what you're saying.
Yes, yes, long run. Because yeah, see, very soon a time will come who's going to do farming. Even in Punjab, if you see, the landholders are actually prosperous farmers. They don't do
Right.
farming, they hire laborers, which come from UP and Bihar. But now UP
Right.
itself is growing so well. People
Right.
are not wanting to come. Who will do the farming then? So, of course, we will need food, and more new technologies are coming,
Right.
hydroponics and vertical farming and so many things. But basic farming will be needed, and that is why this combination of farming plus value addition is the answer.
So that should be, so in your opinion, of course, the ask of MSP and getting out of the World Trade Agreement and all is just nonsense.
They are all negotiation tools. So that is a part of negotiations always. When you want one thing, you ask for three things, you will get one. Right. So that is, I think that's just humbug. That is no meaning. And that is one reason why they have actually lost faith overall of the
Common
Indian,
population. Right.
citizens. Citizens have lost faith because we understand why we are part of WTO. You cannot be
Right.
an isolated economy. You have to be part of the global family. On one side, we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and on another side, then we want to, be isolated from the world economy. It's just
The focus
negotiation
should
tool.
be on value addition. Focus should be on those aspects which would probably open up more export markets than, doing MSP and all of that.
Correct. And hardly two or three states are involved in this. India has 29 states. You cannot call this as an India agitation. Of course, the challenges of farmers
Across
everywhere
the
is
globe.
same. But you will never find the South Indian farmers in these agitations. Why? Because they are farming and they are doing well. They have innovated. They have gone into value addition. They have done this more rotation of crops. Their yield is
Oh,
more.
is that it? I was not aware of that. Do you
So
think?
yes, yes, you will not find. Look at the
Yeah, it's
pictures of
primarily
the
restricted to a
agitation.
couple of regions, I think. Punjab.
Correct. Correct. So it's more political. So that's okay. It will be handled politically.
Interesting. Uh, and you were mentioning value addition and innovation in South India. Any examples of some, like some, uh,
No, so a lot of these examples, like I was talking to you about this coconut guy who is also now doing coconut butter.
yeah,
They are doing
right.
coconut milk. They are doing coconut based
Right. I remember the other
cosmetics.
day, guys, I have been part of Jagat Shah's community, and he was asking that I'm looking for food exporters and people who want to sell to Middle East, right? There's a huge
Correct.
demand for this, by
Correct.
the way. People are only getting hungrier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, food is basic, and ready to cook,
Right.
ready to eat food is increasing in demand because of the lifestyle which people
Right.
have today. So that is value addition, and it can be done. You see, we have one very interesting example of farming community coming into manufacturing is
Right.
Morbi in Gujarat. This the largest is almost 70% of India's ceramic tiles are produced in Morbi, small town. But most of the manufacturers were farmers, and when their children went and became engineers in um, our colleges, they didn't want to do farming. They went into manufacturing. Today,
Right.
it's become the largest ceramic manufacturing hub in India. In fact, ceramic is one industry where India has beaten China in the world. We are able to export more ceramic
I'm not
tiles than
surprised. I
China.
think we have a better taste in design.
Correct. Of course, any day
Yeah.
creativity
Because of our
is
strong culture, right?
very
China is all uniformization and standardization. Design is something which I've never
correct.
think they've got. So, but then in India, you
Correct.
typically see architects and designers, even from Ahmedabad, from anywhere. You have some of the world-renowned architects here. So, design is very
Correct.
spirituality and culture driven, and I think culture-wise, India is something which is absolutely on par. That's one of the reasons why probably Japan also has great design sense. They are very culturally
Yes,
rooted people.
yes, absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
knowledge element of business.
So, guys, there you have it. The farmer protest, probably a political thing, not real. And the real solution is not MSP and all that stuff. It's value addition. It is getting in, basically build out the value chain of food consumption and try to add more and more levels and layers to it. I order a lot from Big Basket, and one of the things I really appreciate from Big Basket, and there's another app called Akshaya Kalpa, uh, in Karnataka, which is started. What they have done is they've given us an app, and then you'll be like, boss, order from farm to your home, and you just log in. I didn't even have to call anyone, right? You just add your details, you pre-fill their wallet, and they have these
Right.
delivery boys who run around. So they just add your address to his drop location. Very efficient operation. I was very surprised, and food was amazing. And I am paying a premium, but I don't care. so
Correct. Correct.
so that's about it, guys. We spoke about exporting to Africa and Latin America. We spoke about some challenges you'll face, some interesting opportunities, and how large businesses are already selling there. One of the reasons that's important is they would have built out uh, a network locally of skilled people, of skilled management, of skilled workers whom you can tap into as well. And if you have any questions, let us know in the comment section below. We're more than happy to take it. See you all in our next episode.
Yeah. So Nikhil, I would
Sure, sure.
like
Go
to
ahead.
add two more things. So if you see, one is that where we spoke about African
Right.
continent, 54 countries. But if you see South Africa, 25% of the entire GDP of Africa is just one
Wow.
country, South Africa. Nigeria is 15%. Kenya is 7%, Senegal 2%. So this is South, West, East, North, four countries, together 52%. Half of African GDP is
Wow.
from four countries. Half is another 50 countries. Why I am telling this, I will tell you. If you look at Latin America, 35% GDP of entire Latin American continent is Brazil, and 20% is
So
Mexico,
you're
which is
talking about
55%.
exporting to just three or
So
four countries.
yes, no, not only exporting but reverse technology transfer. So,
Go
what is
ahead.
reverse technology transfer? In India, when we talk of technology transfer, we generally believe that we will import technology from somewhere. The African countries are, I will say, technology wise, 20 years
Oh,
behind India. And they don't need European American technology, they can't afford, they need Indian technology. So, I'll give you an example. We did a
okay.
project in Senegal where we made a list of 100 products value wise top which Senegal imports. And except for petroleum, we said, for example, we found that they
Hmm.
are importing mango juice. Now, mango
Hmm.
juice they are importing from France, but France doesn't have any mango trees. Mango trees are in Senegal. And the agriculture ministry was telling me that 40% of mangoes in Senegal get rotten. So, Senegal exports mango to France, France exports mango
Okay.
juice to Senegal. So we said then nails, they were importing nails from France. So we said, why don't you bring similar technology from India? Because India is very good in mango juice manufacturing, nails manufacturing, candle manufacturing, so many things. Out of those 100, we listed 65 in products. And we said, bring in the technology and start producing it here. It will create employment. I still remember in that year, uh, the unemployment rate in Senegal was 30% for a small country, right? India's unemployment is 5 or 6% for such a large country. And we said it will create employment, and these are very small industries, and it will stop foreign exchange outflow. And many Indian technologies were transferred. So this is an opportunity
Right.
for Indian companies. to whatever businesses they are doing, try to partner with someone. There is a funding available there for to do this. And then agriculture, again, agriculture reverse. There is a model. There is a farmer from Gujarat who went to Senegal, and today he owns the largest farm in Senegal. And he is actually exporting cashew from there, raw cashew from Senegal to India. And India is processing the cashew and exporting to
Wow.
different countries, right? On the third front, India has done very well with startup
Right.
ecosystem. Startup India. We have one program called ITEC, ITech, where we where we sponsor African and Latin American bureaucrats in their initial career and train them. And we need to actually set up Startup India program in these countries, because whatever Startup India has done to India is what it needs to do in Africa and Latin America. That will be our soft power. The soft power which will what happened when we gave free vaccines
Right.
to 100 countries. That is one of the reason why we are so much respected today. Wherever Mr. Modi goes, he is received with respect. Some prime ministers in Africa have bowed to touch the feet publicly of Mr. Modi. Why? They are also,
Right.
presidents of those countries. Why will they do that? Because they have respect from heart because of what was done during pandemic. You're talking of lives. So that way, Startup India kind of a program we should set up in these African, Latin American countries. The entrepreneurs who come out from there will be very
So,
friendly to
guys,
India.
I have a small tidbit to share, just to add to what Jagatji is saying. Uh, this is a short which became very famous, just a YouTube short. So, Jagat, see, this is what you were also referring to. Let me just show it. So, this was Guyana president, which is right, which will
Right,
be an influential power for us in the sense that they have huge petrol reserves, and India is looking to
correct,
add more. We need petrol. We'll get it from anywhere. We'll get it. We'll take. So let me just play this. This is a
correct,
very inspirational bit.
India has used the fruits of its independence to assist other developing countries. And on this point, Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, we owe you a debt of gratitude. When the world locked its borders and globalization failed, you showed the world that globalization can still succeed and there is still love when the hardest of times hit us. When the world could not find vaccine and you faced the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic, you showed the world what real love and hope is when you shared vaccine with the rest of the world. I stand here very proud of your work, very proud of your love, and very proud of your demonstration of what real love and hope should look like.
So yeah, I mean this.
true, true. That's the soft power of India, and that is how we will win the hearts and minds of
There you
people.
have it, guys. Ending off in a pretty proud note, I would say. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Do check out our podcast. It's available in the audio format as well. So if you're driving somewhere and you want to still listen to it, you can just play it on Spotify and comfortably listen to it. It's available for free, so we don't charge anything. The link is in the description to subscribe to our audio podcast as well. Follow us on all our socials. Uh, and if you have any questions, let us know in the comment section below. Thank you, Jagatji, for doing this. See you all in our next
Thank you.
episode.
I
Bye,
enjoy.
guys.